the testimony of 2 women. Is that what the verse says? The verse itself is about the taking of testimony, the recording of evidence, and especially in a situation like travel, when that can't be done the way that it's usually done. So, in taking evidence, in this case on a loan, right? If you don't have 2 men, then you take a man and 2 women. So that if one of them strays, the other one will set her right. What does that mean? And in order to answer that question, then you do have to look at the cultural context. And some of our jurists, like Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Hajar, Al-Qarafi, and others, they took that context very seriously. And they said that this verse was revealed about the taking of evidence, and it was not about giving testimony in court. And those are 2 different things. In any case, those who make that argument, they would say that this verse has a cultural context of patriarchy. The patriarchy that dominated the society at that time and would continue to dominate it for a long time. And in that patriarchal context, 2 women giving evidence or recording testimony can protect each other, or are more likely to protect each other under pressure than a woman by herself. And so that's really, it doesn't mean that they are less intelligent, that they are less understanding, that they are not able to do the job, but it is taking into account the social pressures that are on them in that society, so that they will be able to give that testimony in the way that they understand it. And for that reason, some jurists said that this should never be applied across the board. So that if we are in a court of law, for example, then the judge has the jurisdiction. And in that case, all the judge needs to know is the truth of the matter. A woman who remembers and who understands it and who is honest is there equal to a man any day. And to buttress that, they point out that in the history of Islam, the greatest testimony of all was given time and time again by single women. Meaning what? What is the greatest testimony of all that was given by single women? Janam? Hadith. Hadith. So that every one of the great women, Hani, Ayman, Aisha, Fatima, all of the great women, they transmit hadith from the Prophet. And the Prophet said about Aisha, خُذُوا نِصْفَ دِينِكُم مِّنْ هَذِهِ الْحُمَيْرَاءِ. Take half of your religion from this young fair lady. From this fair lady. And she transmits the hadith, and she doesn't have to bring her sister or anyone else, Asma or anyone else, to verify that. So there's no greater testimony than that. That's religion itself. Also, in the history of Islamic law, were women allowed to give fatwas? Yes, they were. Women gave fatwas. Now, when a woman gave a fatwa, did she have to have another woman next to her saying that, that's right, sister, go ahead, come on, sister, you're right? Did she have to do that? Absolutely not. Women gave fatwas by themselves just as men gave fatwas, and no one took issue with that. So again, there is a contradiction between those realities in giving fatwas and transmitting hadith, and between any understanding of that verse that takes it out of that cultural context that we referred to.
The Qur'an does say in the chapter termed the cow that a woman's witness is equivalent, two women are the equivalent to one man in witnessing. Now this, unfortunately, has been looked upon by a lot of people saying, well, that means women equal half men. Now another aspect which adds injury to insult for certain people is that a woman gets half the inheritance of a male person. To look at that within the context of Islam, and one of the things I hate about dealing things superficially is that you deal with things superficially. But things can be taken out of context. Jesus said, whoever of you doesn't have a sword, let him sell his garment and buy a sword. I only came to bring war into the world. I came to set father against brother. I mean, you can take those out of context, right, and say, well, hey, this is a real revolutionary warmonger here. And yet, obviously, we know that those aren't what he was talking about, right? So, with women equaling, first of all, we don't see a lot of women lining up to be on jury duty. I mean, it's not like everybody wants to go out and bear witness against everybody else. The idea there is that witnessing is really not a pleasant social function, that you have to bear witness against people or to witness things. It is actually a kind of burden, in fact, and it is seen as that. There are many examples in Islamic law where women are actually relieved of social responsibilities because of the nature of raising a family, of having to deal with those types of situations. So it is seen by Sharia as easing the burden of women. And the proof of this, and I hope you catch this argument because it's a beautiful example of this. In Islamic law, it is perfectly acceptable for a woman to transmit a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad if she is a sound and reliable source. And she does not need two people, another person to say that I heard that from the Prophet Muhammad. So Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, if she transmits a saying of the Prophet, she is considered an absolutely 100% reliable source. She does not have to have two witnesses to say that she heard it from the Prophet. And according to any Muslim, and according to Islamic law, it is infinitely more important to preserve the truth than it is to bear witness whether so-and-so lent you $50 or something. I mean, that is insignificant compared to the responsibility of bearing witness to the truth itself. So a woman's witness is absolutely 100% equal to a man in religious doctrine. And that is much more important by Islamic standards. Also, in things that pertain to women's areas, such as wet nursing, one woman is absolutely sufficient, whereas two men would be needed. So one woman, if she saw somebody giving milk to another person's baby, in Islamic law, that means she becomes the mother of that child. So she has actually rights over the child. Does there mean a wet nursing? I mean, we've kind of lost that idea in the West. There used to be wet nursing. But in Islamic law, it's very important because they can't marry. So, for instance, if my child is wet nursed by a friend of mine, our children become brother and sister, and they can't marry by law. Now, if one woman sees that, she can bear witness, whereas it would need two men to do. You see, so it's not cut and dry here. The other thing in the Qur'an is it says, if you're doing a business transaction, bring two men to witness it. If you don't have two men, then a man and two women. And then it says, in order for one of them to remind the other. And the traditional commentary of that is that because women do not deal with commercial transactions and things like that, the Arabs were illiterate, in fact. That the idea, and the vast majority of women in the world are still in this condition. I hope we realize that. I mean, not everybody is as sophisticated as we are here in the Bay Area. So that's important to understand in that point. And then the final thing is that a woman is allowed to be one witness if she has an additional thing there, is that she just has to, if she was a witness and there was not two women, but one man and one woman, then she has to make an oath by it. That is all. That is the only difference. She has to say by God. I saw that happen. And her witnessing is equivalent to one man. So that is the difference. But it really is not saying that she's half a man. Now, concerning the transaction of wealth, the men have responsibilities that women do not have in wealth. In other words, if I inherit my father's wealth with my sister, I will get 2 shares, and I will get twice as much as she will get. I have, by Islamic law, a responsibility to spend my money on my family and on my near relatives. A woman does not. All of that money is hers. She can do with it whatever she wants. And that is the reason, quite clearly articulated in Islamic law. Nobody has ever said in 1400 years that the reason is because she's worth half of what a man is. No, it is quite clear in Islamic law that it is because she does not have social responsibility. The Prophet Muhammad was asked about a woman who spends on her husband, because by Qur'an, a man has to support the wife by Quranic law. And if she doesn't want to work, she does not have to work. He cannot force her to work. That is forbidden in Islamic law. If she wants to work, that's another thing. But if she doesn't want to work, she does not have to. Now, he was asked, what about if a woman spends on her husband? If she's wealthy and she supports him, he said she will get twice the reward of what he would get. Now, there's another example of a woman getting twice as much as a man. So these things have to be understood in a very sophisticated context. They can't simply be taken out that, oh, this is an obvious example of oppressing women or women not being. Not at all. And that has never been articulated by Islamic scholars in 1400 years. And I've read a lot of books by people from anywhere from the 1st century up until now. And I've never seen that anywhere said.